And welcome in everybody to another episode of Tier Tuesdays. It's Kelcey, and I'm all alone today. And there's a reason why. DJ and I decided to give each other a little break from having to do each one of these every time together. So we are splitting it up. He gets some mock Mondays. I'll take some Tier Tuesdays, and together we'll pop in and out. You just saw me on mock Mondays this week, and you'll see DJ again Tier Tuesdays here in a couple weeks when we do wide receivers. But today we are doing running backs in the draft for 2024. And this is post combine. This is before all the pro days. So let's get into it. I mean, we're just going to talk about them from top to bottom. Again, these are not rankings. These are not, exactly where I'm telling you these guys are going to go. These are just my opinions on based off what I've seen. And these can absolutely change come draft day. And you'll see that maybe in our mock draft. But in a running back class like 2024 is where, well, let's just say it's not the deepest class. I made sure to grab a few guys on here. I believe I grabbed about 10 to 15 guys here to talk about, whether they be good or bad. They're not a whole lot of bad, just probably some mostly slightly disappointing if you watched any of the combine. Not a lot of great performances talked about there. But that'll get us started here. We're going to go straight into it. I'm going to start at the top and work my way down because I feel like this is a little more fun this time by myself. I'm going to go NFL ready. I'm going to have in here Blake Corum from Michigan. If you guys have watched Blake Corum at all during his entire career, the dude is just a winner. He just knows how to run. The moment he gets downhill, he's a bowling ball. He's impossible to tackle. So I have him in there as NFL ready, going to the right team. Any team that has a decent, even decent blocking scheme can absolutely utilize the skill set of Blake Corum. Cough, cough, wink, wink. I'm looking at you, Dallas. And actually, that goes for all three of these guys, Dallas. But we'll digress that conversation now. Next up, I have Jonathan Brooks here from Texas. Obviously, there are a couple questions about whether he can hold on to the ball or not, but I do believe he's NFL ready when it comes down to it. He's not Bijan, but let's not forget he took away carries from Bijan when they were both at Texas. Tough thing to do there if you're Jonathan Brooks. He forced his way into a lineup that had two running backs drafted last year. Just remember that. And third on the list, Trey Benson from Florida State. Again, part of the reason why Florida State was in a conversation here for a top four spot, for a playoff spot this last year, wasn't just their quarterback, who unfortunately got injured. A lot of it came down to Trey Benson in that running game. When worst came to worst, Trey Benson was able to carry the team and put him on his back. So these are the guys I think NFL ready. Obviously, running backs this year probably aren't going to go until round 2. It'd be surprising if I do see one go in round 1. But when they start to go, I do expect these three to be the three of the first guys off the board. Now, I did mention the combine, so that's going to take us to great players, but not a great combine. Talking Jalen Wright from Tennessee. He's leading off this list here. Jalen Wright, he's a quality player. He's part of the reason why Tennessee's had such a great run the last couple of years. But again, there are questions there, and he didn't test well. It wasn't a great situation there at the combine for him. So you do hope he can do better in his pro day, potentially get on a roster here with a third, fourth round draft pick, and make himself a name on probably not a starter, but a backup for the time being, and then eventually work his way into a role starting. Next up, I have Cody Schrader. We're talking about the guy who led the SEC in rushing last year. If you don't know his story, dude worked his way up from a small college all the way up to a SEC team and helped keep Missouri in the conversation last year for the SEC East far too long, if you ask any SEC East fan. But yeah, no, Missouri was a quality team, and Cody Schrader, there's a reason he led the SEC in rushing last year and why I have him here. He's a great player. Again, didn't test well at the combine. And kind of continuing that theme, and last one here on this great, not a great combine list, but great players. Bucky Irving from Oregon. Bo Nix has been obviously the highlight for Oregon this last year, but you'd be remiss to not mention Bucky Irving and what he's been able to do running the ball. I do think there's, again, probably some questions there to be had, but they're not the NFL ready guys. They're not the top guys on this list, but they are really, really good nonetheless. Just didn't have a great combine. So you can't really blame them. Hopefully they have a great pro day, can really show what they're made of. Going on the opposite side of the spectrum, great combine and a good player, Isaac Guerrero. If you didn't know, Isaac is from Wisconsin, and if you know anything about Wisconsin, they churn out offensive linemen and running backs like nobody's business. Great player. Ended up at Louisville after his time in Wisconsin. Made a great run at it this last year at Louisville. And look, he's a guy who tested well at the combine, and he's a good player. You hope he does the same thing as pro day, shows that he's a good player there as well. I don't think there's any question he's going to land on a team in the draft. It's just a matter of where, and does he get an actual opportunity? Hopefully, it doesn't go to a situation where now you see a lot of logjam here in the running backfield, and guys don't get time when they should. It works out better for some, but not as well for others. So we'll have to wait and see here. But I do think Isaac Rendo could be a great guy to pick up middle later this draft and see what you can do with them. Um, don't get messed up with the great combine numbers, though. He does still have some question marks on the field. But as we know in the NFL, as long as you make plays, there's a spot for you somewhere. Speaking of making plays, I got some smaller school guys who will surprise someone. If you guys don't know, it's Isaiah Davis from South Dakota State there on the left, and it is Dylan Laube. Yeah, Laube, Laube, on the right here from University of New Hampshire. You can tell the difference in the pictures. They didn't have the fancy pictures like every other D1 athlete on this list. These guys being D1 AA, FCS programs. Like they made names for themselves. Isaiah Davis, one of the best rushers all time in FCS history. And Dylan Laube made a name for himself during the Senior Bowl, turned heads, absolutely dynamite during the Senior Bowl week. These guys are going to make an impact somewhere. If they get them on the field, they may not have been good guys testing there at the combine, but just get them on a field, let them get the ball in their hands, watch them make plays. They're going to surprise some people. And if you've seen Isaiah Davis, that man is a man. That is a built man, and Dylan Laube is no slouch either. These guys are built for the NFL. I'm not saying these guys are going to be Christian McCaffrey, but don't be surprised. There's a small school guy every year that makes an impact in the NFL, and these are my two guys I look at that are potentially those dudes. Now, kind of keeping in the same vein, underrated, probably an undrafted running back who does well in the NFL. Again, we see one of these every year or so, and these guys I think are top of the list. We got a legacy here, starting with Frank Gore Jr. out of Southern Miss. It's freight train. He's just like Frank Gore Sr. Give him the ball, let him go to work. He can run in between the tackles. He can run off the edge, similar to the way Frank Gore was. Don't let his speed deceive you. He may not look fast, but when he gets the ball in his hands, he can run with anybody. Same goes for Ray Davis here from Kentucky, the second guy here in this category. I think Ray Davis, if you didn't see anything that he did this last year at Kentucky, he was a huge player for Kentucky. Absolutely lived and died by what his abilities were. Even back to Will Levis, when Will Levis was there, he was running the ball, toting the rock for him. And Ray Davis is a quality running back, deserves a spot somewhere in the NFL. Will get his opportunity at some point in time and will make somebody very, very happy. Now, next up on this list, former Ball State guy, Carson Steele, I believe it was Ball State, coming up here and is a MAC conference guy, turned into UCLA product, and up until his injury this year, really was toting the rock well for UCLA. Big reason they stayed in the game against many teams they shouldn't have. And you just kind of hope he gets an opportunity and he can stay healthy. That's been a big question mark in his career, staying healthy. But give me Carson Steele here as an underrated, probably undrafted guy who does well in the NFL. We'll see what he can do at his pro day. He's supposed to be healthy, so we'll hope for the best there. Now I'm kind of going to the bad here. Probably better off not wasting a pick on these guys, maybe giving an opportunity as an undrafted guy. And it's a shame to say, but number one on this list is Dylan Johnson from Washington. After that ankle injury going into in the playoffs, this man has not been the same. Maybe it's just some fatigue still. Maybe he hasn't fully recovered. He just doesn't look the same. Obviously, I'm basing this off what I saw at the combine after the injury. Wasn't a great combine for him, but then there was also a lot of question marks when he was actually playing at Washington before the injury. There's been previous injuries as well. So there are some questions there for Dylan Johnson. I don't know if he's the guy that you want to make a home run pick on if you're in the NFL, if you're a GM or anybody trying to keep your job. But maybe if you can just waste a pick on a running back because you have a good backfield, why not? And now this guy, I'm probably a little bit harsher on than most. I think a lot of people actually have him higher ranked than I do. But I'm going to go with Marshawn Lloyd, and this one might be the one that gets me in heat. But probably better off not wasting a pick on Marshawn Lloyd. Probably the only guy I can think of that has played for both USCs, both South Carolina and Southern California in his career, but didn't really impress me with either team. Sure, he was the best back on both teams. That's like being the sharpest crayon in the box. Congratulations, you're still a crayon. I don't know what else to tell you. He's probably going to surprise me in the NFL, and he's probably going to do well, but I just don't see it right now. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of footwork that needs to be handled, a lot of questions whether he can hold on to the ball long term or not. Let's not even talk about catching out of the backfield long term. I don't know how successful he's going to be. There's a lot of question marks for me about players coming out of Southern California this year, USC West, if you will, because Caleb Williams obviously dominated a lot of the headlines there, and everybody else was kind of along for the ride. So there's a lot of question marks coming from offensive players from USC in the draft for me, and Marshawn Lloyd's probably the biggest one here. How good is he really? I just don't know yet. Um, I just don't think he's going to be a good guy to waste a pick on. Again, I might be wrong. You might just waste a seventh rounder on him, but I don't see it personally. And last on this list, and I don't mean this in a good way, unless you're Georgia on the goal line or you're the Eagles and you have Jalen Hurts, but good for a yard every time, no more, no less. Kendall Milton. I believe Georgia fans can back me up here by saying Kendall Milton might have been the most disappointing successful running back in their history. A guy who has been successful, had moments and times in which he was really, really good. But it seemed like in portions of the field that matters, third and short, fourth and short, inside the red zone, he struggled. Unless it was 1 yard to go, he struggled trying to get that extra yard, getting that second yard, getting that falling forward yardage almost every time. With the moment he went against bigger schools, it was a question about whether you could even rely on him to run the ball. The reason why it was such a good thing Georgia had Brock Bowers and had so many great receivers over the last couple of years has been because they can't rely on this run game in the last 2 years. Kendall Milton is being the number one running back there kind of takes a lot of the blame, and I don't know if it's his blocking. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's just not seeing the holes right. But to me, I look at him and he's like Mark Ingram, a guy who has been successful in the college ranks, but not necessarily because he runs the ball well, but it's because anybody can drive through that giant gap in the middle of the road. When Mark Ingram got to the NFL, he could get you a yard every single time, no more, no less. Kendall Milton, I feel like is a lot of the same going into the NFL. There's a lot of question marks, a lot of things that need to be handled. I'm not saying it's a bad option if you get him on your team, but hopefully you don't waste a top 3 pick on him, top 3 rounds with him, because if you do, I don't have high hopes for that one. But guys, let me know where I messed up. As always, this is one of those things we love to have fun with, love to be unique with our choices, and sometimes it works. Sometimes I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. I'm probably more often wrong than right nowadays. But let us know what you think. Let me know what I got right, what I got wrong, who I left off the list. Maybe there's a guy that you like more that's in the draft as a running back than I do, and maybe he should be on my list as an NFL ready guy. Let me know in the comments. Be sure to stay tuned every week leading up to the draft, as we're going to be doing a new position group each week. And as I mentioned, DJ will be back with me for the receivers when we get there, as well as a few defensive positions when we get to them. So be sure to stay tuned for that. As always, check out our episodes live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, as well as mock draft Mondays now. Every Monday, DJ will be dropping his new mock draft for the first round. Now, this last week, we included trades for the first time. There were some wild trades in there. Be sure to check that out. And until next time, guys, I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.